let's go back and talk about painting. So what you have on your agenda is number 9.
Okay. Well, I'd like just to get us started here. I'm not sure where else to put this, but I got a phone call from a constituent and sort of wondered where we're at with the process of, and folks wanted to paint back the blue. I think we had said that was okay, and they were just wondering where we're at with that. If you could just let us know so that I can, I'm sure they're probably listening, and I do support back the blue strictly because I do support our police. There's nothing more, there's nothing less to my support for that, and I know that some others may have some other thoughts on that, but that's strictly what my thought is. So if you could give us an update on it, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, and we're going to address this later. We can address it now as Ford asked as well. So, received information from applicants when it is, I believe, a group, and there's strong support in terms of community. The information, I believe, was dropped off Monday at City Hall, and it was put into our Dropbox, so I did not receive it till today, but I did have a chance to look. I scanned the potential, the logo and requested location, scanned that in, sent that to council. Was not planning on bringing it up this evening, in part because council at the last meeting, we did agree, similar to the first request, to approve it and to leave it up to the mayor to discuss with the applicant in terms of location. So I did send that to you all, basically to keep you in the loop and informed. And there's 2 big questions, I think, that I'll need to work through with the applicant. One is location, and the other is time for the date for the painting. So these are, as we're heading towards the fall, it does, and they did submit a potential rain date, so we want to make sure that we have a date that works in terms of other things happening in the community. And then if that date does not work, a potential rain date works in terms of what's happening in the community. And as expressed, optimally, it will be least disruptive in terms of streets and traffic.
Okay, thank you. That works for me, man. I appreciate that.
Brian,
Bill,
what were the dates that they gave you? What were the dates that they gave you?
August 28th for a potential date, and then the 29th or the 30th for rain dates.
Now, restaurants, are they closed at 9 o'clock at night? How does that work? Are they closed because of COVID, or what's the deal with that? Do you understand that?
Well, here's the bigger concern that I have, is with everything happening in the community. As a reminder, that's tail end of City of Cortland moving. And we're talking about an overnight painting job on a Friday or Saturday. And the first painting that was done on a Monday evening. And my impression is that a weekday evening, a weekday night, there's a heck of a lot, in particular in the early portion of the week, there's a heck of a lot less happening after hours than on a Friday or a Saturday. And this is not just about the college and college students in particular throughout the community. And anybody that might tend to disagree, I would say, hey, just go down and look at Main Street. Let's see, it's 8:30 right now, 8:30 on a Tuesday night, and then go down Main Street at 8:30 on a Friday or Saturday. So I'd like to find a time and date that might be a little bit less happening in the community at the same time.
So you're going to contact them, you're going to meet with them personally on that, or no?
Actually, I've had conversations with one of the organizers earlier tonight, and we're going to talk again tomorrow or the next day and work on something that makes sense. Because I get it. I can't say you have to do it now, because from what I understand, they do have somebody lined up to potentially paint, and when people make schedules and they have plans, it's difficult sometimes to move things around.
Pretty much what I'm hearing is that we're flexible as well with the date.
Very good. Any other questions?
Okay.
Back to Bill.
Yeah, so, we're gonna have a repaint on that too, also, if that happens, if that wears down, we have a, before the actual criteria is initiated, to give them a free repaint on that, and
I would say that, yeah, we would be consistent. If the council elects that a repaint is appropriate for one, then a repaint should be appropriate in the future.
yeah, good. Thank you.
A couple of questions on that repaint thing though. Just to clarify, would it also come before council for review, or at this point, because we've done it for one, we wouldn't have to do it for the other?
Say again?
I guess I'm just trying to understand what the parameters on the repaints are. You know, are we talking about an unlimited number, or are we thinking just one? And also, you know, does any request for a repaint need to come before council, or is that part of the original request?
Well, until we have a set policy, we'll continue to bring questions about painting or repainting everything to council. As we process going forward, again, this is something that legislatively would be beneficial if we say, okay, here's the policy, and here's what the expectations are. Our discussion in the past, in terms of how to move forward, I think we have a strong process. Things went pretty well with the first one. I think things will go pretty well with this one as well. And if it's the desire of council to move forward, then we should have a permitting process. And it could be delegated. It could go through the Public Safety Board, which is our public works. It does not have to be the council that makes decisions. But it is, I believe, incumbent upon council to make the decision about how to move forward with this in terms of future requests. So now may be a good time to revisit, and if you're talking, I'll say we can go one by one and talk about some of the situations that are put forward. The first one was that the official request come from the city resident. That was something that I recommended discussion. City resident, open.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, man. It's our community, so yeah, I think if you're asking us, then I would say yes, that makes sense.
I agree.
Jackie.
Right, I agree that, it just seems right in terms of city. I have seen some posts that people commenting on it. The city is considered, capital of the county, and so county members should be able to also. I don't feel I totally agree with that. You know, they have the county jurisdiction. And so, wouldn't they be able to go through the county jurisdiction?
I mean, if somebody resides in a town outside of the city, why are they not requesting for it on the town street or a village street if they reside in a village?
Good point.
Second was a petition with at least 30 signatures and addresses of city residents looking for community support. Thoughts on that?
That's good.
It makes sense.
Third was the opportunity for a permit fee.
We're in debt, so $10,000.
We're not looking to vote this evening, just in case anybody is listening and concerned, but we need some direction, so this helps us move along. Oh, in the general concept, are we okay with a permit fee? And then,
Yeah.
if the answer is yes, I'll ask Mr. Van Donsel, Corporation Counsel, if he would care to render an opinion with regard to what a fee could be in terms of a range.
Just take granted, is we usually waive the fees anyway.
Yeah, I'll look at some others and see what's comparable.
Very good, so we can come back to that, we know it basically has support. Number 4, design including wording, meaning, colors, and requested size must be included. Basically, you have to submit what it is that you are looking to paint.
Yes.
Number 5, applicant is required to hire/use professional painters. Experienced artists can be used, but examples of past work that is similar or greater in scope needs to be submitted. Looking at the quality of the work.
Yep.
Number 6, mayor will work with the applicant to choose an appropriate location. Ultimately, it is at the city's discretion where artwork will be displayed.
Yes.
Yep.
7, painting must be done overnight on a night to be determined by the city to minimize disruption of traffic, and a rain date must also be selected beforehand.
Yes.
Number 8, the type and quality of the paint must be approved by the city.
Right.
Yep.
Number 9, applicant is responsible for blowers to speed the drying process.
Okay. Yes.
And maybe I should switch 9 and 10 because, well, no, this would be appropriate in terms of time frame. Public streets should be reopened by 7 a.m. the following morning, no later than 8 a.m. Just making sure people are clear in terms of the time frame. Then 2 more items that have come up. In terms of profanity, hate speech, I think it would behoove us to ask Corporation Council to potentially investigate and craft language that would eliminate the opportunity for hate speech.
I would say also anything that's, I don't know, maybe this falls under hate speech, I don't know, but anything that's of a violent nature, anything advocating violence or something of that nature as well should not be allowed.
I'm going to assume that the silence is tacit agreement.
Repeat that again, Bruce.
I don't know if this falls under hate speech or not, but I would say anything that's advocating violence should also be excluded. It should not be allowed. I don't really have the legal definition of hate speech right at the tip of my finger, so I could say if that falls underneath there, but anything that's going to advocate for violence, you should be able to say no to that.
Right. I would think our esteemed legal counsel would be able to word that correctly, include that in.
Yeah, I agree.
And we'll need to work on the wording to make sure we are clearly defining. So, Rick, a little bit more work for you. And then the last would be the issue of the question of touch-ups. So the question that came forward today, and there was unfortunately a small weather event that negatively impacted the painting for the first logo, and council has approved going forward under what conditions or what are the stipulations for a painting that has already been approved and done for it to be touched up.
Well, Mayor, we also have to remember that maybe that's why that vandalism was able to occur, because the paint wasn't completely dry, but it wasn't just because the paint wasn't dry. And that person intentionally, you can see the tire marks, spun out on part of that sign to try to destroy it. So, I think that type of activity should be taken into account when we're looking to, if we look at repaint, I don't think we're going to say you get to repaint this into, forever. for countless generations, but once the useful life of the paint has worn off, that's it. I don't, those are some things I think we should probably talk about, but I think there's some unique circumstances, and vandalism being one of them, where they should be allowed to probably repaint it. That's just my thought.
Bruce, I agree with you. There should be a shelf life on whatever is painted. It cannot stay there forever. So possibly, as you say, a repaint once allowed. Hopefully, it won't be destroyed by vandalism, but we should be able to allow nature to take its course and to wear the paint off. We cannot be allowing constant repaints. And I would even look at something as far as down the road, as far as not having the same message painted again. One time for, per se, one message, whether or not it's Black Lives Matter, support the blue, whatever. We can't be having people come back and back and back saying, oh, I want to paint this again. Because it would just get out of control. So I would foresee or look into no more than maybe a repainting allowed once, whatever the condition is. Whether or not if it doesn't dry and a thunderstorm blows through, or vandalism, anything like that at all. One repaint, and then after that, let nature take its course.
Point of information for council, Bill Carpenter lost his connection. I have called him, and he is on my cell phone, so he is here verbally. I believe since we cannot see him, if there are issues in terms of voting, he will not be able to vote, but he is here and might contribute to the conversation. Kat McCarthy, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that with, what we just approved for the previous one was due to a rain event. So I think thinking through when our repaint circumstances are allowed is important. It seems like we've set the precedent that due to inclement weather, we might consider it, but are there other cases, vandalism being one of them as well?
Well, maybe we should even also look at a time frame, because boy, this opened up a whole web of things, hasn't it? Again, what's the shelf life? If something is painted well and it's dry, and then 2 weeks later, thunderstorm does wash some of it away, do we allow a repaint that much later for 2 weeks? Or if somebody does come by and squeal tires for it 2 weeks later. Vandalism. I would think, again, maybe we put a time limit on it. No more than, a repaint, no more, within a 4-week period. Or again, until we could be having people wanting to repaint them numerous times over numerous months.
So in terms of conditions, unforeseen circumstances, i.e. weather, vandalism, and time frame, I left that open-ended. Sounds a little indirect.
I mean, I think we can probably take some of those things as a case-by-case basis and take a look at the extenuating circumstances and make a reasonable decision.
Should be case-by-case, I think a case-by-case decision,
Can you all hear Bill? Yeah.
Yeah, case-by-case decision, and I believe, what I mean? Just depends on the circumstance.
But I'm firm on the no more than a 1 week thing.
Yeah, I am too.
Only one.
Yeah, one.
Hey, Mayor, Cortland Council is trying to jump in there.
Oh, Rick?
Just a point of clarification when we prepare this, relative to the requirement of blowers.
I think there are other agents that could dry things, I know we use them for our street markings, I think we need to have, allow for alternatives there, just to make sure we don't make it cost prohibitive as well.
Responsible for speeding the drying process, for a speedy drying process.
It's effective.
Yeah, that's why you get paid the big bucks. Effective. Here we go. That sounds like a lawyerly word.
Don't try this at home.
And so with the information discussed today, also potentially excluding, we'll need some, I think, a preamble. How do we exclude work by public works, utility markouts, etc.? So I'll have something for council to consider at the next meeting with regard to this, and it'll be formal and it can be up for a vote if we're going a resolution, but we would, I guess, Rick, would this need to be a local law?
Yes.
Okay, so this will be a two-meeting process I'm envisioning then. At the first meeting in September, public hearing for public input and also a strong rough draft of what was discussed this evening. And then potential vote, I believe the next meeting would be September 15th in terms of an official city policy. Does that meet with council approval?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill said yes, in case you could not hear.
We could have. Rick has his hand up.
Mr. Van Donsel.
And just so we're clear, we are approving the back-to blue in advance of the local law, and that the local law is going to apply going forward from that date to other applicants other than Black Lives Matter and back to blue. Is that everybody's understanding?
Yes, council approved 2 weeks ago, so that the request for back to blue has received permission. And Rick, you know better than I, if we were to receive another request before the law is passed, I'm assuming we would need to address that in the way that we addressed the first two. All right, very good. That would address, do we want to talk about sidewalks and curbs?
No to sidewalks, no to curbs.
Meaning no painting?
No painting on sidewalks or curbs.
All right, Bill, you there?
The sidewalk inside the property, allow that. I think curbing should be, I think the, again, consistency, that it should be the same as the street. Application, it just makes it easier, application process and all that, with the curbs and all the same protocol as you put it with the streets. I think it makes it simpler, you know what I mean?
Mr. Van Donsel.
Bill, the only exception I see in that is the 30 signature petition for a homeowner that wants to paint his curb. So we would have to carve out something different for a curb.
That's fine, I just think that the city property, city property, I think that city property, city property, it's all the same protocol, and like Rick said, do something different, but I think it would be a lot easier just to follow that protocol that says, no, city property. Talking about curb being their property, like, what do you know about that? You know what I mean, that's another discussion. The curbs that are already painted, what do you do then?
Captain McCarthy?
I believe at our last meeting, we asked Mr. Van Donsel to do some research on the sidewalks. Is there any update on that, given the sensitive nature of them, the way ownership is?
Yeah, I gave the mayor's office a memorandum of law on streets, curbs, and sidewalks, and the constitutional parts of that and what to consider.
So if I did not get that out to council. I apologize, I will forward that along at the conclusion of this meeting.
Thank you.
It's pretty straightforward with everybody. The city is relegated to time, place, and manner regulations. We cannot regulate content. Sidewalks are clearly more of a private right. Curbs have more city involvement, and the same with streets. Both curbs and streets, you have to be concerned that any regulation that you apply does not interfere with other city requirements. Curbs that demark parking lots or parking areas, handicap or otherwise. The same with where the sign goes, the streets go for signs. So, for example, you can regulate what colors people paint their curbs so that it does not interfere with parking regulations or other safety concerns of a particular curb. The only other thing that applies to all three is that nothing that they apply can degrade the purpose of the street, sidewalk, or curb, because we have determined that the preservation of those things is an important city factor. So those are the sorts of concerns that I addressed in that memo. But it's pretty straightforward stuff. I don't have a problem with people painting the sidewalk if they want to. The curbs, I see what Rick is saying in terms of maybe you have to restrict certain colors, but I don't, if people want to paint, I'm looking at this from an optimistic point of view. Maybe people want to make things more colorful around town in terms of what they want to paint on the curbs and things of that nature. And the sidewalks, to me, and I don't want to make it onerous on the property owner too. I don't think if someone wants to paint a sidewalk, they shouldn't need, Rick's right, they shouldn't need signatures, they shouldn't need a permit, they don't have to have a professional painter. It's a sidewalk. It's their sidewalk. They may have just paid several $100s to have it repaired, which would be a good thing. So I don't want to get into the business of telling people what they can and can't, unless it's really something blatantly, again, advocating violence or hate speech or something like that. But I don't see that happening. So that's what I stand on those issues.
Are there any safety considerations with painting sidewalks as far as just using them throughout, people with different abilities?
Well, you probably would have to, that's a good point, and probably have to, it can't be like Rick was saying, to degrade the sidewalk or make it slipperier, but I do a lot of walking around this town, I know some of you do too, and some of the sidewalks are deteriorating to the point of barely sidewalks, or they're uplifted, you can trip over them at night because of the tree roots and things like that. So, there's a lot of things that I would consider less than ideal when it comes to sidewalks. I don't see how cleaning them would have any kind of a real safety issue unless they put something on there that caused it to be slippery when it shouldn't be, or something of that nature. That's a good point for that. So.
Visual too, I would imagine, if it makes it harder to see or something like that might be an issue.
And that's one of the issues that I had raised at the last meeting. If you are going along on a sidewalk and if it is painted, and imagine now not a solid color, maybe I wasn't clear, but if somebody does something that has multiple colors and throw in the potential issue of cracks or one block that might be slightly raised compared to others, it's a safety issue.
And with those safety concerns and what we just heard about, the legal end of things, is there a way to kind of set parameters so that we can kind of walk that line?
I'll tell you what, council, in the interest of time, if you come back to the sidewalk and curb discussion next meeting, and I will ask for a vote in terms of if you would support the ability to paint sidewalk curbs. If the answer is no, we move forward. If the answer is yes, then I ask you to be able to, I'll put forward some criteria that is similar to what we're talking about with roads, but obviously somewhat different, and we'll do what we're doing with roads, but for sidewalks and curbs, and it'll just be a meeting or maybe two behind what we're doing with regard to roads. How's that sound? So I'm asking you to have a definitive answer in your mind how you would vote next meeting, if you would approve or disapprove of painting of curbs, and then the same question for sidewalks.